The phone call came on Wednesday evening while I was reviewing quarterly reports at my downtown office. Dad's name appeared on my screen, and for a moment I considered letting it go to voicemail. Our conversations had become increasingly strained over the past 6 months, ever since I'd finally told the family the truth about my career. "Hi, Dad. Isabel, we need to talk about Easter Sunday." I set down my pen and looked out at the city lights through my floor-to-ceiling windows. 28 floors below, people were heading home from work, completely unaware that somewhere above them, a daughter was about to be excluded from another family gathering. "What about Easter?" "Well, your mother and I have been talking and we think it would be best if you just dropped off food but didn't stay for dinner." The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd been expecting something like this for weeks. Ever since the disastrous family dinner where I'd revealed that I wasn't actually struggling as a small restaurant worker, but was the CEO of Delicioso Holdings, a restaurant empire worth $94 million. "You don't want me to stay for Easter dinner?" Dad's voice carried that familiar tone of strained patience. "Isabel, it's not that we don't want you there. It's just, things have been awkward since you told us about your business situation." My business situation. That's what he called the fact that his youngest daughter had built a chain of 17 restaurants across 3 states while he thought she was barely making ends meet as a line cook. Awkward how? You know how. Your sister Carmen feels bad about all the job advice she gave you over the years. Your brother Miguel keeps second-guessing every financial decision he makes because apparently his little sister is some kind of business genius. I closed my eyes and tried to keep my voice steady. "So the solution is to exclude me from family dinner?" "We're not excluding you. We're asking you to contribute food and then, maybe give everyone some space to adjust." "Space to adjust to what, Dad?" "To the fact that you've been lying to us for 4 years. There was the accusation that had been simmering beneath the surface of every conversation since March. I hadn't been lying. I'd been protecting myself from exactly this kind of reaction. But Dad saw my privacy as deception, my humility as manipulation. "I never lied to anyone, Dad. I just didn't announce my success because I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I own." "Isabel, you let your mother worry about whether you could afford groceries while you were secretly a millionaire." "I let Mom worry because every time I tried to tell you all that I was doing well, you changed the subject or made jokes about my little restaurant dreams." "That's not the same thing as." "Dad, bring food for Easter but don't stay for dinner," I interrupted, feeling suddenly exhausted. "I hear you loud and clear." "Isabel, don't be dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic. I'm agreeing to your terms." There was a pause. "Okay then. Good. Your mother was worried you'd make a scene. What food do you want me to bring?" "Whatever you think is appropriate. Maybe some of those appetizers you make?" "Nothing too fancy. We don't want to show off." "Nothing too fancy. Of course not. God forbid the family acknowledge that their struggling daughter had built something remarkable. I'll take care of the food, Dad." "Good. And Isabel? Try to understand where we're coming from. This is all very overwhelming." After he hung up, I sat in my office for a long time staring at the awards on my wall. James Beard nomination for Outstanding Restaurateur. Hispanic Business Magazine's Entrepreneur of the Year. The framed photo of me cutting the ribbon at my flagship restaurant while the mayor looked on. 4 years of building something extraordinary, and my family's reaction was to exclude me from Easter dinner because my success made them uncomfortable. I pulled up my laptop and checked the catering orders for Easter Sunday. My assistant had forwarded me the list earlier that day, and I'd noticed a familiar address. 847 Maple Street. My parents' house. Martinez Family Easter Dinner. Full catering service for 12 people. Honey glazed ham, roasted vegetables, garlic mashed potatoes, dinner rolls, salad and tres leches cake. Total cost, $1,200. They'd hired Delicioso Catering, my company, to handle their Easter dinner while asking me to drop off appetizers and leave. I picked up my phone and called Roberto, my catering manager. "Roberto, it's Isabel. I need you to cancel an order." "Sure, boss." "Which one?" "The Martinez order for Easter Sunday. 847 Maple Street. The full dinner service for 12? That's a big order to cancel so last minute." "What's the reason?" I looked out at the city lights again, thinking about the conversation I'd just had with Dad. Family circumstances have changed. Should I call them to explain? No need. I'll handle any questions personally. "Boss, we'll have to keep the deposit since it's less than 72 hours notice." "That's fine. Standard cancellation policy applies." After I hung up, I leaned back in my chair and tried to imagine Easter morning at my parents' house. They'd wake up expecting a catered feast and instead they'd find nothing. Just whatever appetizers I dropped off before being dismissed. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Carmen. Can't wait for Easter. Mom says the food is going to be amazing this year. Then one from my brother Miguel. Thanks for handling the food situation, Isabel. I know things are weird right now, but we appreciate you contributing. Contributing. Like I was making a potluck donation instead of... Well, I wasn't doing anything anymore since they'd just uninvited me from dinner. I tried to focus on work for the rest of the evening, but I kept thinking about previous Easter celebrations. The years when Mom would spend all weekend cooking, stressed and exhausted by Sunday afternoon. The years when I'd offered to help and been told, just bring a side dish, Mija. The years when they'd praised my cooking but assumed it was just a hobby. Now they'd hired my company to cater their dinner while telling me my presence would be awkward. Friday morning my phone rang. Isabel, your father told me about your conversation. Hi, Mom. Mija, I want you to know this isn't about not wanting you there. It's about adjusting. Adjusting to what, Mom? To finding out that my daughter has been successful without telling me. I could hear the hurt in her voice and it made my chest tight with guilt. Mom, I wanted to tell you. But every time I brought up the restaurants, Dad would say, that's nice, Mija, and change the subject. Because we thought you were talking about working at restaurants, not owning them. I tried to explain the difference but no one wanted to listen. There was a long pause. Isabel, do you know how it feels to find out your daughter is a millionaire from a newspaper article? The Hispanic Business Magazine profile. I'd forgotten they might see it. I'm sorry you found out that way, Mom. We felt foolish. All those times we worried about you, offered you money, gave you advice about finding a real career. Mom, I never made you feel foolish intentionally. But you did make us feel foolish, Isabel. Whether you meant to or not. I didn't know how to respond to that. How do you apologize for being more successful than people expected? How do you make amends for achieving something privately before sharing it publicly? So Easter dinner? Is still the plan your father discussed with you. Bring food, say hello, let everyone have some space. I understand. Do you? Because your father is worried you're going to make this about you instead of about family. Make this about me. As if wanting to spend Easter with my family was somehow selfish. Mom, I'll bring food and go. I promise not to make anything awkward. Thank you, Mija. We just need time. Easter morning, I woke up early and drove to my flagship restaurant to prepare appetizers. Cheese and charcuterie boards, stuffed mushrooms, bacon-wrapped dates, spinach and artichoke dip. Enough food for 12 people to snack on while they waited for their catered dinner. The catered dinner that wasn't coming. I loaded everything into my Tesla. The car my family didn't know I owned because I'd been driving my old Honda to family gatherings, and headed to my parents' house. I pulled up at 11 a.m. just as Mom had requested. The house looked festive with Easter decorations on the front porch and cars already filling the driveway. Carmen's minivan, Miguel's SUV, various vehicles belonging to aunts and uncles and cousins. I carried the appetizer trays to the front door and knocked. Dad answered, wearing his best button-down shirt and looking slightly stressed. Isabel. Right on time. He stepped aside to let me in, then immediately reached for the trays. These look wonderful. Very professional. Professional. Like it was surprising that the CEO of a restaurant empire could prepare professional quality food. Where should I put them? Kitchen table is fine. Everyone's in the living room. I followed him through the house, noting the Easter flowers and the good china set out in the dining room. They'd clearly put effort into making this a special celebration. Isabel. Mom appeared from the living room, wearing her favorite dress and a slightly forced smile. The food looks beautiful, Mija. Thanks, Mom. Carmen emerged next, looking uncomfortable. Hey, Isabel. Thanks for contributing. Of course. Miguel nodded from the doorway, his wife Maria beside him with their 2 kids. Smells good. Everyone was being perfectly polite and perfectly distant. Like I was a catering service making a delivery rather than a family member bringing food to share. Well, I said, setting down the last tray, I should let you all enjoy your Easter. Already? Mom looked surprised. You just got here. Dad was clear about the plan. Food drop-off, then I give everyone space. An uncomfortable silence fell over the kitchen. Carmen looked at Miguel, who looked at Dad, who cleared his throat. Isabel, you don't have to rush off. You could stay for a few minutes. A few minutes. Not for dinner, not for the celebration, just for a few minutes of awkward small talk before being dismissed. That's okay, Dad. I have things to do. On Easter Sunday? I almost laughed. Stat. Some of us work on holidays. As I was walking toward the door, my phone rang. Roberto. Boss, I'm sorry to bother you on Easter, but I'm getting calls about the Martinez cancellation. I stepped outside onto the front porch to take the call privately. What kind of calls? The family is asking where their food is. Apparently they had 12 people expecting Easter dinner and they're upset. Through the window I could see my family in the kitchen, probably wondering who I was talking to. Did you explain the cancellation policy? I tried, but they're demanding to speak to the owner. They said their daughter Isabel owns the company and she'll fix this. I looked through the window at my family, who were starting to look concerned. Dad was checking his phone. Mom was opening cabinet doors, probably looking for backup food options. Roberto, transfer any calls about the Martinez order directly to me. Will do, boss. Sorry again for calling on a holiday. I hung up and walked back into the house, where the kitchen had erupted into quiet chaos. Mom was pulling frozen casseroles out of the freezer while Dad argued with someone on the phone. What do you mean canceled? Dad was saying. We paid a deposit. We have 12 people coming for dinner. Carmen was looking at her phone with confusion. The catering company is called Delicioso? Isn't that? She trailed off, looking at me. Miguel was reading something on his phone. Delicioso Holdings. So Isabel Martinez. The kitchen went silent except for Dad's increasingly frantic conversation with Roberto. Let me speak to the owner. This is unacceptable. I walked over and gently took the phone from his hand. Hi, Roberto. It's me. The Martinez family won't be needing catering services today. Dad's face went white as he realized who I was talking to. But boss, Roberto's voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. They're very upset about the cancellation. Should I offer them a discount for future service? No need, Roberto. I'll handle this personally. I hung up and looked around the kitchen at my family's shocked faces. You own the catering company? Mom whispered. I own 17 restaurants and 3 catering companies across California, Nevada, and Arizona. The company we hired? Is mine, yes. Dad sank into a kitchen chair. You canceled our Easter dinner. You canceled my Easter dinner. I just canceled the catering order for a family gathering I wasn't invited to attend. Carmen was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Isabel, there are 12 people coming. Kids, grandparents. What are we supposed to feed them? I looked at my sister, this woman who had spent years giving me career advice while I built a business empire she never bothered to understand. I brought appetizers. Appetizers for 12 people for Easter dinner? Dad was very clear that I should just drop off food and leave. I assumed appetizers were sufficient for someone who wasn't staying. Miguel stepped forward. Isabel, this is crazy. You can't just leave the family without Easter dinner because you're mad at Dad. I'm not mad at Dad. I'm respecting his wishes. He wanted space from me, so I gave him space from my catering company too. Mom started crying. Isabel, please. Your tia Rosa is driving 2 hours to be here. The cousins are already on their way. I looked at my mother, this woman who had raised me and worried about me and ultimately chosen my father's discomfort over my inclusion. Mom, I can have food here in 90 minutes. Really? Full Easter dinner for 12 people. Ham, sides, dessert, everything. Dad looked up from his chair. How much will that cost? The same as it would have cost this morning. $1,200. But we already paid that. No, Dad. You paid a deposit to a catering company. The owner of that company, me, canceled your order. If you want Easter dinner, you need to place a new order with the owner. The kitchen was silent except for the sound of Mom crying softly. Isabel, Carmen said carefully, what do you want us to do? I want you to decide if you want Easter dinner more than you want me to stay away from it. That's not fair, Miguel protested. Isn't it? You wanted the food I could provide without the person who provides it. Now you get to choose which one matters more. Dad stood up slowly. Isabel, if we ask you to stay for dinner, will you provide the food? Dad, are you asking me to stay because you want me here or because you need my catering company? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Dad started, then stopped. I don't know anymore. Then let me make it simple, I said, pulling out my phone. I'm going to call Roberto and have him prepare Easter dinner for the Martinez family. Full service, delivered in 90 minutes. But I'm not staying to eat it. Why not? Because you made it clear that my presence creates awkwardness and drama. So you get the food without the drama. I was halfway through dialing Roberto's number when Mom grabbed my arm. Isabel, please don't do this. Don't do what, Mom? Don't punish us for being confused and hurt. I'm not punishing you. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. We didn't ask for you to abandon us on Easter. Yes, you did. You just didn't realize that abandoning me meant abandoning my resources too. Carmen stepped forward. Isabel, we made a mistake. We were wrong to ask you not to stay. Were you wrong to ask, or are you just saying that because you need Easter dinner? The brutal honesty of the question made everyone flinch. Both, Carmen said quietly. We were wrong and we need your help, and we're sorry it took a crisis to make us realize it. I looked around the kitchen at these people who had raised me and loved me and ultimately failed to see me. They were flawed and human and scared of change, but they were also my family. If I stay for Easter dinner, I said slowly, things are going to be different. Different how? Dad asked. No more pretending I'm not successful to make you comfortable. No more treating my achievements like they're somehow embarrassing or threatening. And if we can't handle that, then this is the last Easter we spend together. The ultimatum surprised even me, but as soon as I said it, I knew it was true. I was done hiding my success to protect other people's feelings. Mom wiped her tears and looked at Dad. Ricardo, call your sister and tell her dinner might be a little late. What about the food? Mom looked at me. Isabel, will you stay for Easter dinner with your family? Are you asking me as your daughter or as the owner of Delicioso Catering? As my daughter, who I'm proud of even when it scares me. I called Roberto and had him prepare the full Easter spread. While we waited for the food to arrive, I sat in the living room with my family and told them about my business for the first time. Really told them with details and pride and honesty. 17 restaurants? Tia Rosa asked when she arrived and heard the story. And growing, I said. We're opening 3 more locations this year. Mija, Dad said during dinner, I owe you an apology. For what? For being more comfortable with you struggling than with you succeeding. As I looked around the table at my family, eating food from my restaurant while finally celebrating my success instead of hiding from it, I realized that sometimes the most important ingredient in any meal isn't what you serve. It's who you choose to serve it to and whether they're worthy of what you're offering.